Hello, today I am going to be reviewing the 10th studio album by Madonna called Confessions on a Dance Floor. This album was released on November 9th, 2005. This is considered one of the best albums of Madonna's career, along with True Blue and Like a Prayer in many critical circles. I'm very excited to discuss this album, and I also wanted to put this review up alongside with a top 25 best songs of Madonna for me personally video that I did just upload yesterday. I do want to just preface this video by talking about that video for just 1 second. So unfortunately, and this is something I knew I was possibly going to run into issues with on this channel, as soon as I uploaded this video, I got my first ever copyright strikes, copyright claims. Apparently, the 30-second rule, as a lot of people think is permissible for use of any kind of music whatsoever, regardless of any sort of copyright claim to that music, you can use that song without getting any sort of copyright claim attached to it. Well, the video had samples and snippets of all of the songs that I wanted to put, similar to how I did the 25 Best of 2017 video, which that video did not get a single copyright claim on, which I think kind of bolstered my confidence in making this one. And I am now what I basically have done, and I really did a lot of research on this about fair use, which is a clause in the Copyright Protection Act in this country about, how especially if you're a critic or if you're making reviews, and the original content of your video is a certain amount of the video, it's actually like 70 to 30 is a good ratio to the amount of borrowed content that is put in, like snippets of songs and videos, which is what I was doing, and it's just supplementary. And also the fact that I'm not monetizing my videos yet, and I do not ever plan to monetize any videos where I include snippets of audio or visuals of someone else's work. This is another reason why I do not include samples or songs snippets in my actual album reviews. I also don't do that because my reviews are so long anyway, the videos would just get way too long. And I had been thinking about that, and I'm so glad I've not been doing that because I really don't want to run into problems with copyright. I want to really minimize that. I must admit I am a little bit frustrated, as many I have seen on YouTube have been. Warner Music Group, I have seen a lot of controversy around them claiming things. They own the Happy Birthday song. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can't do in videos and you'll get copyright claims and your video will be blocked. And so basically the video is not technically blocked right now. I did something which I'm only gonna ever do once, and I disputed for fair use these copyright claims, and I have 30 days basically to see if if Warner Music Group and Universal Music Group are going to consider it fair use. And if it's not, I wrote in the letter very specifically they can take the video down, they can put ads of their own to monetize that video, I don't care. The video I'm going to link in the description, it's not showing up on anyone's news feeds, to any of my subscribers out there, but the video is technically viewable, since I did put in that dispute. But I don't know how long it's going to stay that way. If it does get officially blocked again, I will upload that video without any samples of the songs, which will be really unfortunate because I feel like, I don't know, with those countdown videos, it just makes them so much more fun to see and hear a bit of the song, before I talk about it. But if that's the case, especially with artists from Warner Chappelle and Warner Music Group, they're very protective about their rights. Like I said, I didn't get a single thing from the 2017 video thing, but none of those were taken off of Warner Music. So I don't know what to think about that. And going forward, I spend a lot of time on these videos. So anyway, I don't want to spend too much time talking about this, but I just want to reference it. It'll be linked in the description below. You can watch that video before it possibly gets completely taken down. I hope that, it may, depending on what country you're in, I'm not 100% sure it's going to work. It works for me, but I haven't tried viewing it from another YouTube account yet. But I will just link it down there because I am proud of that video, and I do talk a lot about this album in particular because it is my top 25 favorite Madonna songs. So all of that aside, it's unfortunate, but hopefully it'll get resolved. If not, like I said, I'll just re-upload it without the song snippets. Let's talk about this record. So, disco and electro pop from the 70s and the 80s. This is sort of the theme of music that she is paying homage to and referencing. Obviously, in the title track Hung Up, we have that iconic ABBA sample, which she did write a very profuse written letter of to ask permission to use, which they did grant her. And of course, from Gimme Gimme a Man After Midnight, which we all know, and it makes the song just so much more energetic. And I think the throwback sound of that really sets the tone for the rest of the album, being so much about disco pop and also clubhouse dance music, like the Bee Gees, like Pet Shop Boys. It's something new to the table for Madonna, but also referencing some of her 80s hits. Because a lot of the songs have the potential to be what her 80s hits were, just sort of reimagined in a different sort of sonic sphere. The music video for Hung Up, which also features her dancing, and she's in her 40s in this video, so she's showing off her ability to move as an older woman, which is very important and impactful, is a tribute to John Travolta and like all of the dance videos that he does, and also parkour is used. It's like an urban physical phenomenon that sort of struck gold into the mainstream. She is, in an urban setting, dancing at the club. This album was conceived because, the predecessor album, American Life, was so political and so angsty and so kind of coming from a darker place and a bit more of a pessimistic view of the world, especially of the American society. And so she wanted, at this point, 2 years later, she wanted to craft an album that would just make people happier, that would lift people up. It's still actually a very deep and personal record, though. Do not let that sort of pop gaudiness distract you from the fact that, especially towards the latter half of this record, Madonna is actually dealing with a lot of personal issues, and a lot of societal issues as well do come up in the framework of these lyrics, which are actually a lot more beautiful and well thought out than I originally gave them credit for when I first discovered this album. Usually, this album, it's more the music takes center stage and the lyrics are sort of just not as important, but the lyrics are actually very important to this album, which is pretty phenomenal. The album is called Confessions on a Dance Floor because it basically is, that long, especially New York City, which played a huge influence into this record, that long night out where you're dancing, and at the beginning it's so much fun, but you're sort of just slowly getting into it, and then you sort of are sweating out confessions, this sort of old, idea of revealing yourself through music and through dance and freedom of expression and letting all of your inhibitions go. So Hung Up is an iconic song. It's one of her best singles that was ever released that wasn't from the 80s, because all of Madonna's really huge highest charting hits were all from the 80s and some in the 90s, but it was mostly the 80s. But Hung Up was that one song from the 2000s of hers that just went straight to #1 in so many countries. I mean, it was just this huge success for her and critically acclaimed all across the board. Confessions as an album is her highest critically acclaimed album since Ray of Light, and she hasn't released an album since then. This is over 11 years now ago that this album was released. She hasn't released an album since that has, or actually 12 years, that has come anywhere near to this amount of critical acclaim. And I'm really hoping that Madonna does finally get an album again in the near future with her next one that comes back to being a little bit more real respected by critics and also the charts. This album is also constructed like a DJ set. She actually was working with several DJs on the production of this album and the writing of it. So there's a version of the album where the songs just bleed into one another, and it's the better version to listen to. Get Together was actually the third single released. This song was very insidious. It first wasn't immediately grabbing, but on repeated listens became something I really, really started to fall in love with, almost even more so than Hung Up. Get Together is very house sounding, and it is very echoey, and it's very rich in its nuanced production. And again, that ecstatic, altruistic, hopeful tone to how she sings, can we get together? I really want to be with you. There's some cliche lyrics, but they work for this song because it speaks to, you approach the dance floor at night. You're feeling a little shy at first, but you're starting to feel this wave, this ecstatic wave, and you're feeling the music, and you think, anything could happen tonight. Anything could happen in my life now. And you're starting to get that chemical reaction going. And that's what this song is, that slow buildup of ecstasy. very well played off. It didn't do commercially as well, but it was still an amazing, impactful song that still ranks very high in my catalog, although it didn't make my top 25. Would definitely be another honorable mention song, even though it didn't even make my honorable mentions. I mean, Madonna has so many songs. Sorry was the second single. I'm not as crazy about Sorry. It's a great pop dance, a little bit EDM, electro pop song. It sounds a little bit more in the 80s direction than the 70s direction, though it always will have a little bit of tinge of that disco. She sings Sorry in like 8 different languages. The music video shows her again, the nightclub scene in the taxi being a little bit more risque this time than in the hung up video. And again, it's very undeniable. You can't help but still feel like if you love any kind of dance music, you will fall in love with it. But to me, it's just not nearly as iconic, although that pounding bass that it has is very, propelling. It does keep the song really moving. I mean, again, this is a straight up, electropop disco song. ABBA on Acid has been used to describe by Madonna herself sort of the vibe that she was going for with a lot of the songs on this record, and you can definitely hear that. Future Lovers is a really interesting song. So this is the first song that's a little bit more esoteric, and it's not just constructed as like a pop radio hit. She begins by with this spoken word speaking about, the day-to-day 9 to 5 grind of life, and how it's sort of like as if she's like some sort of stewardess on an airplane, or, some sort of robotic voice in a spa. She's talking about like, let go of all of this pain in your life. Take the happy pill. The night is when you come alive. Future Lovers deals with that sort of understanding of the nightclub and the rave culture as some sort of coping mechanism for life and positivity and love in general to form. It's alluding to, this is the future of love. This is the way that humans now find their heaven, their escape, whether it is through, possibly alluding to drugs and alcohol, though I don't necessarily see it that way. I don't see Madonna as ever promoting that kind of thing directly in these songs. I see her promoting letting yourself go on the dance floor, obviously, but also just through pure like expressions of energy and also creativity, be it a painting or dance or athletics, exercise, getting out, you're exercising your demons, through dance, and understanding that there's so much hope for humanity if we can all, if we all just were stopped warring with each other and all just got on the dance floor, it would be a better place. So Future Lovers does have a lot of all over the place sort of samples. There's so many samples in this album, and it definitely has a very interesting structure, but it stands out for me as one of the more altruistic and esoteric songs on this record. I Love New York is obviously an ode to New York City. It's very cheeky. It's a little bit sarcastic. She sings about, well, go to Texas then. That's where they golf. I don't think Texas is where actually as many people golf as they might just sort of like be on a ranch or sit on a porch and, chew grits or something. But necessarily, that's what she's saying, is it's like, if you can't handle the heat, get off my streets of New York. And she sings Get Off My Street over and over. There's samplings of sirens, which has always been a staple, especially from the 90s hip-hop reference. So she's embracing urban culture as well in this album. And I Love New York is just pulsating, a full-on rhythmic song, talks about other cities. She sings about LA is for people who sleep, which I think is very interesting. I was just in LA, and honestly, I like New York more. I've been to New York so much more in my life, and there's just an energy about New York that feels a lot more raw and primal. And yeah, New York has a lot of its ugliness, but it has so much more culture and richness. LA feels so manufactured and fake to some extent. Don't get me wrong, there are some nice things about LA, the weather being the biggest. But there's something about New York that is just so much more interesting to me. And I'd actually rather live in New York, even though it's so expensive and so over the top, and it would swallow me whole. I'm not a city person to begin with, but I love that she's cheekily making fun of LA, because other artists like Lady Gaga have also said, I never want to live in LA. Like, it's all these stars always flock to it, but is it really all that? It's actually a little bit of a facade, and it's also very dirty. So, Let It Will Be is a little bit more of a filler track on this album. It's probably my least favorite on this record just because I do feel like it doesn't stand out as very memorable. I was always very interested by the title because it didn't really make sense to me. I mean, I kind of got the gist of what that meant, Let It Will Be, but it's not Let It Be, it's Let It Will Be. This signifies a shift in tone of the album where she's becoming a little bit more reflective and a little bit more introspective. This song is reflecting about her career thus far, which is her third decade of being this pop icon. Now let me tell you about success, about fame, about the rise and the fall of the stars in the sky. Don't it make you smile? Just watch me burn. Let it be. Won't you let it be? Of course, I do think about Let It Be, the John Lennon song. I don't know if she's necessarily directly ripping off of that, but she is sort of trying to take that sentiment of this sweet surrender to life and to destiny and understand that she is going to crash and burn along this dangerous, precarious path of stardom. She would know better than anyone else about the rise and fall. She's been at the top, and she's also been the center of controversy and attack. People will always attack her just as much as they'll laud her for whatever she does. That's just the price of fame. And so this song very kind of cleverly talks about, in very subtle way at the same time, because it's very vague, and it still is a groovy song. It's not necessarily nearly as memorable, though. Forbidden Love. This is the second time she has a song called this. There's a song called Forbidden Love on Bedtime Stories from 1994. She cheekily talks about how she's like, well, if I'm going to rip someone off, it might as well be myself. I kind of deserve that at this point, don't I? She's been around. She can plagiarize herself. But Forbidden Love, second time around, is so much more fulfilling. That Forbidden Love feels so much more worth it than this song. This is straight up house, trance, European club music, and it feels so cathartic and ecstatic. This is what ecstasy should feel like. This song speaks about, that forbidden love. I mean, again, it's that two people meeting on a dance floor and at first thinking there's no way we could be together. How on earth could you and I fall in this rhythm? But we do because of the music. And suddenly everything just falls apart. And everything we understood once about the world is suddenly topsy-turvy. Are we meant to be together? And of course, there is still that second guessing of itself. The song treads very carefully. It doesn't get too overpowering. It's a slow burn, but it is so pulsating and it is so hypnotic. And that's what keeps me coming. It's one of my favorite songs on this record for that. It's a little bit more like under your skin and instead of over the top and in your face. We seeg into the favorite song on this album for me, and this was technically the fourth single off of this album, and I almost wish it was more successful than Hung Up, Jump. Jump, I talk about in my top 25 songs review. It's definitely up there. I believe I had it at number 9, spoiler alert. Jump is just everything about a confident, boosting, esoterically fueled, but also, it's like We Are Family. It's like that song, but it's Madonna's version of it. She sings about my sisters and me coming together on the dance floor, but also coming together in life and taking that step. Are you ready to jump? Are you ready to try something new? Because it's scary. You have to take that deep breath. But this song is goading you on. It's telling you that in this electro rhythm that is so encompassing and so enthralling to take that chance and leap of faith, because life is short and who knows what may happen, and you should just surrender to this melody, to this dance floor. Jump is just everything. I remember I heard it first on like Ugly Betty. Anyone remember that show? I used to love that show, and I remember they used that song on a Madonna episode where they were using all sorts of Madonna songs, and they had Jump in there, and I was like, what is this song? Oh my god. And that was when I was still not really into Madonna, or I didn't really know much about her besides, like Holiday and Into the Groove. And I was just like captivated for that first second. And it always reminded me of that show, which I think is really fun and interesting. And the music video, by the way, is filmed in Tokyo, which I love. She's paying homage to like manga culture, Japanese culture, these athletic, again, these very kind of like, it's all about movement and interpretive dance. and it's so energetic, and I do think it also reminds me a little bit of Japan now, mainly because of that music video. But in my eyes, the music video, I kind of do get that feeling of like that sort of more like Eastern mystical kind of pulsating dance music, if that makes any sort of sense. I don't know. I mean, this album is about cities, so I could see this album being about Tokyo. I could see it being about Shanghai, New York, Ibiza, Barcelona, Berlin, Stockholm, Paris, Rome. It could be, and Rio. It could be all those places, and London. So I'm definitely, you know, picking up on all those different things coming together. Stuart Price, by the way, is an amazing writer and producer. He did an amazing job with her on this record. How High is another kind of interesting sort of pulsating song. Again, she's now reflecting again, how high are the stakes? How much fortune can you make? How much can she push the envelope? Madonna has done this considerably a lot in her career, and she's wondering really how high the stakes are. She's done so much, and she's changed so much and paved the way for so many people. But is there a limit to how much she can do before she will fall out of grace completely? You can sense that Madonna is a little frustrated again, but she's exercising that frustration in this song. And it, again, is a very in your skin sort of contemplative, pulsating, bass-driven song. Isaac. Now, I talk about this song a lot in my best of video because I have this at like number 13 or something on the list. This song features vocals by a Yemenite Hebrew man named Itzhak Sinawi, I believe is his name, anglicized to Isaac Sinawi. And she did come under controversy from the Israeli rabbis in Israel for they believe using Isaac Luria's name in vain, and that is blasphemous. You're not supposed to sing and especially capitalize off of Isaac Luria, who is a 16th century prominent Jewish figure, poet. You're not supposed to use his name in pop music. And she's like, no, I have nothing to do with this. I mean, she is in the Kabbalah community. This song is inspired by the Kabbalah. Yemenite Hebrew verses are a poem that is from the Kabbalah. But it's thousands of years old. It's a lot older than the 16th century. And she is frustrated that these rabbis, without even hearing the song, just constantly shut her down. She's gotten into trouble with the Catholic Church, and she's gotten into trouble with everyone at this point, at some point in her career. So I'm sure she just brushes it off. She doesn't really care. She knows that the song has nothing to do with Itzhak Luria. It's just about Isaac, the man who sang it. She was going to call the song Fear of Flying. Honestly, I kind of wish she had, because I do think that's a really interesting title. She never says it in the lyrics itself. Obviously, this song is straight up electropop with also a little bit of a dubstep and morphed, sampled, cathartic mess. I mean, it's all over the place, but it is so rhythmic, so hypnotic. It does sample Isaac's voice as he sings in Hebrew, talking about the gates of heaven are always open if the gates of others are closed. You know, it's a very esoteric, spiritual, religious song. And it feels religious, it feels spiritual, it feels like it's moving towards something, but it's also a little dark. You know, there's the use of chimes, there's some percussion. It's very ended by this pulsating rhythm. But Fear of Flying would be interesting for a title because it does sort of speak about that trepidation of understanding religion and flying and what that really means. It's a spiritual song, so it's like, what is it about, you know, being truly aware of your spiritual power? It's almost frightening. There's a little bit of an ominous edge to this song, which makes you feel a little uneasy, and it's meant to, which is good because it doesn't make it feel cheesy. If she went religious on some of these songs otherwise, you might be like, why? This is just, let's not put religion on this album. This is meant to be just like a fun time in the club. But when she does include it and you think, oh, a DJ'd song about religion, like how's that going to work? It does somehow. And I'm very in awe to the producers and to Madonna and Stuart Price for constructing this song in such a very enigmatic way that feels very new age. And yet at the same time, it's not hitting you over the face with it. And it feels like it could just fit in easily with the rest of the music. It just feels a little Middle Eastern. You don't have to think too much of it, or you can look into it very deeply and understand more of what she was getting at with this song. Push samples the Every Breath You Take song by The Police, though it's a little bit morphed and changed. You know, you hear that every breath I take. You hear that sort of morphed into the way she uses it. I'm not as crazy about this song. It's unique and it's interesting. And this song is about her being influenced by all these different people that she's come across in her life, or just anyone, you know, how they push you to see a different point of view. You know, you push me to go the extra mile to be a better version of myself. Every step I take, every move I make, it's all because you push me. So she's riffing off of that song. Again, she got permission to do this. And she's talking about the impetus for her existence, you know, her continued slayage in this game of fame and her career. Whoever it is in her life that is giving her this energy and this motivation and inspiration. It's tough love, you know, you need to be pushed sometimes beyond your limits, and it's uncomfortable. And that song, the song sort of slight over the top, you know, abrasiveness addresses that, because it's not a cuddly, soft song. It's not sparse either. The production is very over the top, and it's very, I think, dubstep inspired. It's kind of like dubstep 10 years before dubstep was really a thing. And she's really mulling this over. Last, we have Like It or Not, which kind of closes out this album. I view this as sort of like maybe one of the only other ballad-like songs. Like I said, there's really no ballads on this album. It's high energy. It doesn't really turn off until the, you know, 50 minutes are over. You can call me a sinner, you can call me a saint. Just celebrate me for who I am, dislike me for who I ain't. And put me up on a pedestal or drag me down in the dirt. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but your names will never hurt. I'll be the garden, you be the snake. All my fruit is yours to take. Better the devil that you know. Your love for me will grow. Because this is who I am. You can like it or not. You can love me or leave me, because I'm never going to stop. It sums up basically all that Madonna's trying to really get at in this album, which is, I'm going to explore different avenues. I'm going to push boundaries. I'm going to push buttons. You can like it. You can take it or leave it. Love me or leave me. I'm not going to stop doing what I'm going to do. I'm not going to let you get in the way of my progress, of my evolution. And Madonna's evolution is quite something to witness. I mean, she has reinvented herself so many times. She's experimented so many times. She's collaborated with so many different people. Is quite enthralling to see in the scope of her career. And she's going to tick boxes. She's going to upset people, like with Isaac, and she doesn't care. It doesn't stop her. You know, it's good. She learns from these experiences, and she just sort of rushes it off. And so Like It or Not, it just sort of a little more quietly addresses this and closes out the album. It's sort of like, you know how you have a warm-up to a workout, and then you have the workout, and then you have the post-workout and cool down? Like It or Not is the cool down. The tempo slowed, the decibels are taken down a notch, and you're sort of just like, you're just sort of getting the heart rate back down a little bit, because you were just sweating it out. And if you don't sweat listening to this album, you're not listening to it right. So that is Confessions. I will always have positive things to say. This is my second favorite album of Madonna. My first being Ray of Light. So Ray of Light and Confessions are both up there, and it's definitely her best dance record. She's tried to sort of mimic the success of Confessions, I would say most recently with her album MDNA. And MDNA, oh, it does not hold a candle to Confessions. I mean, MDNA, there are a lot of similarities between those two albums. And if I ever do make an MDNA review, I will discuss that. But MDNA is the kind of one album, it's like, it's trying so hard to replicate Confessions' success, because there's a lot of similar subject matter and a lot of similar production and some disco elements thrown in there, though it's a lot more electro-pop and EDM focused. It doesn't hit the mark in the same way. Maybe because she's retreading territory, though. MDNA feels reductive to some extent. Anyway, I don't want to just spend this time trashing MDNA, because it is my least favorite record of hers. But, you know, whereas Hard Candy was different because it was more urban, it was exploring hip-hop, and it was also, you know, the Timbaland sound that was taking over the radio in 2006, 2007. And I don't have a problem with that. It's just that MDNA just felt all over the place and scattered and altogether a lot less full of life, and there really didn't feel like there was much effort put into it. Confessions feels just poignant, to the point. It doesn't necessarily take itself too seriously all the time, but at the same time it is serious and it is impactful and it stays the test of time, and it is truly a timeless record because of that. Just like a Prayer was, or True Blue was, or her self-titled. So honestly, I would love to hear what you have to say about this record. It's a obviously iconic record to the gay community. And it was, I'm sure, very inspirational to Lady Gaga and a lot of other artists. She was also, you know, inspired by like Light Years, the album by Kylie Minogue from the late 90s. So yeah, I definitely give this album so many props. It got, you know, Best Electronic Dance Album at the Grammys in 2007. So it got the accolades it deserved. I will link in the description my review of Ray of Light and also my, like I said, the video that hopefully is still up, which is the top 25 best songs of Madonna. So check those two out, and if you enjoyed this review, give it a like and subscribe, because I will be continually doing more Madonna reviews, as long as reviews of all of these other kinds of artists. So again, I hope you enjoyed, and I've got my tissue here. It's very cold outside, so I always have a tissue in my hand right now. Oh my god, it's crazily, insanely cold. We need the heat that this album brings right now. So I hope you enjoyed. Thanks so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye.